Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Oh, there's a word that's going around. People have been hearing it, saying it for some time now. I love the fact that it's on the radar of many because it shows that we're thinking a little bit deeper for a change. The word is mindset. Mindset. And what is your mindset? What mindset do you have for life, a task, whatever it might be? Now, let's use that word mindset and apply it to somebody that leads a team. Maybe you're a C-suite executive. Maybe you own a company. What is your company mindset? We're going to look at that today and explore something called organizational maneuverability. And this gentleman helps people understand all of this and apply it. And one of my favorite things about him is he backs it up with insight, could be a quote, could be data, could be science, a lot going on there. His company's called coachingforrelevance.com, and he's back with us. He's a Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach. Randy Swaim is here. Hey, Randy, how you doing?
Hey, great to be here again, Steve. Hope you're having a good day too. But yeah, great to be here again.
I'm in a good mindset. Got to be honest with you.
There you go, man. You betcha.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Really am. So let's apply that to a company. I bet you a lot of companies don't even think about what their mission statement is. I bet you a lot of them don't even express that for those on the team, and certainly what the mindset of the company is. And I guess it can vary from time to time, right?
Yeah, it totally can, and that's what I'll kind of bring here. But the bottom line is, and you kind of implied something very good there, because as a leader, do you have clarity on what you're really trying to accomplish? And are you really
Mm.
leading your team in such a way that they can become and do that and things of that nature? And what I'll say here is so often in today's world, and Steve, I think you know this, but so often, not everybody in our society, but so often in our world, people just go into rote gravitational academic things that somebody told them in school or something like that kind of thing. And you know what? When you're doing that, you're not totally getting in the way. And I'll just bring two quotes to you that are kind of interesting quotes. One of them that I posted on my social media this morning, kind of thing. But this is a quote from Isaac Newton. You know, he's somebody that people know the name of, but he's about a century ago kind of thing. But the quote was this. It said, "What we know is a drop. What we don't know is an ocean." You know,
Mm.
and just because we're thinking of something doesn't necessarily mean that we've got it all together.
Oh.
We may not. There may be other stuff out there. And the other thing that I'll just sort of bring out here that's very aligned with that, and it's very aligned with organizational maneuverability, but it's a quote from Dr. David Jeremiah, and he brought it out in a faith-based thing, and I'm not going to bring faith-based thing to this because this is strictly about leadership. But what he brought in this is very aligned with what we're talking about. And so I'll just give you the quote that he made, and it was very good. He was talking about, you know, really being generous with people and really making a difference and all of that kind of stuff. And so guess what? He was bringing it to a degree of leadership. But the quote is this. He said, "Some things in life are better caught than taught." And then he said, "You don't learn it by the teaching of it, but by the watching of it." And it's interesting that those two
Mm.
bring a concept out. And if you think about it, what I'll just sort of bring out here just a little bit for people in a leadership aspect, one of the questions that I would ask any listeners is simply this. When you think of your company, or the team that you lead, let me ask you this. Are you thinking in terms of just doing this because that's what we're supposed to do? Or do you have a bigger picture of it? And it's interesting that I throw this out. There's two big pictures, or perhaps two companies, you know, kind of thing. One is, and I'm, you know, I don't know if there's a lot of companies out there that do this, but some of them, because they don't have a lot of money starting, you know, and all that kind of stuff, it may be that you have some. But here's the thing: when you look at your company, Are you doing it in such a way where you're totally happy and pleased that every month you get 1% profit, kind of thing? You're just happy that you get more money than you had to spend,
Mm.
and it's maybe 1 or 2%, kind of thing. Are When you see that, do you in your mind and in your heart, do you sort of sit there and go, okay, well, yeah, okay, we're good, we're doing good, kind of thing? Or if you think about this, because in order to do that and go beyond that, you got to think bigger. And as these quotes kind of implied, that, what if what you have that you're bringing out has a whole lot bigger result than you can even imagine? And if you got, when your team is kind of doing something, you know what? Who's to say that you can't get any better? Guess what? How you get there could be part of the ocean and not the, not the drop. Because guess what? You don't know it. You haven't thought about it. You haven't cleared it. You haven't surveyed it. You haven't explored it. And the bottom line is, whatever level your company is at, whatever level your team is at, if you can give some thoughts, and guess what? Some of that may be going out and exploring and asking questions and interviewing your clients to get a sense of their thoughts on it and things like this, of what they think. Because guess what? Some of your clients may have a thing that, boy, I wish they would sell this. I wish they had this or whatever, but they've never told you that, kind of thing. And if you get out there, and part of this aspect, if all you do is go out there and say, okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's increase this and just expand it to where we're going to pay 30 or 40% more than we have been paying, but you don't get the return on it. Everybody kind of goes, oh, that was a mistake. But you know what? It could be that the mistake was how you did it. You didn't get clarity on what that looks like, because in your mind, in your strategic vision, what's it going to take for you to get clarity on what your clients, or maybe what a new group of clients really wants to be a part of when you go there, and all of that? And when you think about this, that's part of that ocean. And you got to, bring some of the things that you don't realize and bring it into your awareness, bring it into your a vision on that, and to see what the possible, and one of the things that you don't know of as part of that ocean is you have no clue about what the possible return is on it, what the possible benefit is. What is it going to take for you to go out there and look at that and survey that, perhaps, and explore that a little bit? Not to just go out and do it, but to give a sense on, perhaps, maybe in a lot of your customers or in a lot of your prospects, maybe that haven't bought anything from you yet. Uh, in talking to them, what do they perceive as, boy, they'd love to see, and they'd love to get, they'd love to have that available? Boy, you know what? You do that, I'll be with you. I'll come buy it, kind of thing and stuff. And if you think about it, when you're talking about this sort of stuff, a lot of people don't realize this. And one of the things is, and I mentioned to you my organizational maneuverability concept. It's the thing that not everything fits rote academic aspects. And in our environment, let's face it, the business environment that you have out there right now is not what it was 150 years ago. It's a little different, kind of thing. And things change. Are you aware of what things are changing in your customers, in your clients, in your prospects out there? Are
Mm.
you aware of what's changing? Because here's the thing. What if you were out there having a conversation with a prospect and they told you something that, but boy, they'd love to see because they need that. And in your mind, you went, oh, I never thought of that. Wow. And you can make that happen, kind of thing. And so when you look at it, and you're looking at these quotes and sort of the application in the organizational maneuverability aspect of it, what in your team and with you as a leader, what are some of those things you got to be aware of. And the other thing that I'll throw out here very quickly for the listeners is just this. Not every one of those things fits a rote academic picture. You know what? When you're talking about perhaps expanding your team to be able to meet that, that could be a process that has a couple of 3 or 4 strategic steps in it to go out there and maybe do this little part of it and see if there's some return on it. And you know what? If the return is more than you would have ever thought, guess what? That could be a communication to you in a good way. If you take the first step and you go out there and do that, and there isn't very much return on it, okay, that can tell you something too. But guess what? When you're talking about your team and what you're bringing and what you are all about with your company and your team, guess what? That can vary because, if you're talking about this, that, or the other thing, that may be applicable to your company, but maybe not in another way that you were thinking about it. And so finding out the details and getting a clarity on that strategic vision and the strategic likelihood, because like I said, Isaac Newton said, guess what? Most of it's, most of what you don't know is an ocean. It's not just a puddle out there. It's an ocean. And there's so much you don't have. You may make an assumption because somebody told you this in school or whatever, kind of thing. Or you may just be making an assumption where you're comfortable with it. You know what? In your organization, if you want it to be where you're just getting 1 or 2 or 3 or 5% profit every year or something, and that's what you're comfortable with, okay, do it.
Mm.
Maybe you don't want to go out there and make an input and have a dramatic impact out there. But here's the thing: if you're a creative and a good listener and you're a good leader and you have a team that you have developed in such a way that they as a unified group wants to have dramatic success and results, they want to see results that we haven't even thought about yet. Think if you want to get amazing results in what you're doing and what your team is doing and perhaps what your company is doing, you got to be thinking about that because those are two very different things and two very different aspects in this. And it's just something to consider when you're talking about somebody. And what I would say is just for anybody that's listening, just with your team, how do you experience that right now? Which one of those is it? Or at what point, maybe in the um, uh, in the angle that are between the two, do you find yourself? And what's one thing you may want to do a little different? What's one thing you want to maybe apply in a different way or whatever? Who knows? So it's something to think about that when you
Sure.
talk about those two quotes are very good. And like I said, I love the one with Isaac Newton in there because you know what? Everything you know is just a drop.
I love that quote. And
Everything you don't know is the ocean.
part of it scares me because, let's say you're in a line of work and there's
Yeah.
so much that you don't know. But the other
Yeah.
part of it is exciting because there's so much, if you look at it through the eyes of opportunity, there's so much that you can learn, which will
Yes.
improve you, improve your company, and all of that. You talk about organizational maneuverability.
Hmm.
Can we go a little bit deeper into that? How do you define that?
What it is, it's a trademark concept that's trademarked for me out of Washington. And what it is when I say organizational maneuverability, and thank you for asking that. You have my compliments. I appreciate that. Thanks. But
You know
the
why I
organ,
asked that, Randy? You know why I asked that? Because there's an ocean of things I don't know.
you know what? There's an ocean that none of us know. I don't.
Yeah.
There's things that I don't know. So we're all in a growth process, aren't we? Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
but organizational maneuverability, the concept comes, and really where I got it was um, with my background as a pilot, and particularly in the military. Realize that not everything you do is road academic. When you go into a fight or something, guess what? your maneuver aspects or your defense mechanisms or what you have to do may be slightly different depending on which airplane you're fighting or which threat you're fighting and things of that nature. And it may be a little bit different depending on whether there's two of you that are working together to defeat this or just one of you. There's a lot of factors that when you talk about leading your team in an unpredictable environment in today's world, there's a lot of factors that are not always just rote academic. And
Mm.
and organizational maneuverability talks about, with a plane, when you have to miss a mountain, guess what? You have to turn and adjust over here. And guess what? There's times when you got to do that with your organization. When you have what I might call, mountainous threats that come into what you're trying to do right now. Do you understand how you can maneuver your organization to reach that success in some way without threatening, without crashing something, without having a big issue with it? And so the organizational maneuverability on that is all about helping leaders to have a little bit of a picture and to enhance their image and their vision of how they need to lead their teams and make that happen so that if their company does have to kind of switch over here for just a little bit and then maybe switch back, they may have to do that. Do they understand how you're going to do that? Or are you going to be what a lot of road academic people have said throughout the history? You'd be surprised at how many people in my journey I've heard say this, and it's crazy. But when it doesn't go exactly what they planned, they say, well, this should have been like this. Well, you know what? It wasn't. And so you got to be able to make your organization a degree of maneuverability. Now, it may be with what you're working on and with what your focus is, it may be that maneuverability is just a little bit of it. It may be that with the situation that you're in right now, with perhaps the resources that you're putting out there that people are purchasing, it may be that you have to make a bigger change. It may be that your true success, if I'm heading this way, it may be that the true success comes and I'll just put it in, pilot words, but it may be if I turn 30 degrees left over here and go that way for a little bit, I get radical results because I get results that I didn't expect initially. And am I aware of that? So the concept of organizational maneuverability is a concept that was trademarked for me out of Washington, and I got my own links out there. It's on my website and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line on it is being aware of when you need to adapt your company a little bit, not to necessarily change your company perhaps, but to know when it has to maneuver over a little bit and to reach radical results or to minimize risk or whatever. And all of those are things that a leader needs to be aware of, but it's not just the leader being aware of it. It's having the communications with the team, because guess what? The team, since they're interacting at the point of attack, guess what? They may be aware of a factor coming on scene that you didn't see initially. And if they know about it already, guess what? They know what to do. And one of the things that I throw out to people is when you're talking about this concept of organizational maneuverability, it's realize that you develop your teams. You have to develop your teams before the actual situations happen. And a lot of times you do that, you can ask questions that get them thinking about it and get their mind processing and stuff. And so guess what? Then if an unexpected factor comes on scene and in their mind, they can go, oh, you know what? This is what we were talking about. Oh, yeah, I know what to do. And success happens. And so there's a lot of aspects about the organizational maneuverability concept that come into play there. But all of that is very aligned with those two quotes also.
Love them.
Because there's so much out there that people, not everything is road academic. If I do this, it's supposed to do this. Guess what? Not always. Sorry. There's other factors out there that can come on the scene that you didn't expect.
I
And
want to
so
share
those
with
are just some
everybody
things.
at this point, just as a reminder, that you're an accomplished pilot. You teach piloting. You've been doing it for decades, and
And I
many
bring
of
coaching to jet pilot crews. So yeah,
well, that's my point here. That many of these principles come from that. What am I talking about here? Well, the word maneuverability, maneuver
yes,
being a aviation term. What are you doing? You're maneuvering the aircraft. You're doing
that's right.
maneuvers. And the other point you brought up in preparing your team as a pilot, you're always prepared for the worst. Something happens, you're up in the sky. You know what you need to do. You may have not done it before, but you
Yeah.
know the direction you need to go in just because you need to know. And so
And
does your
and in
team.
fact, one of the things when I'm teaching pilots and jet crews and stuff like that, one of the things that uh, one of the questions you can ask them, and one of the questions a captain can ask the co-pilot as they're trying to develop them and stuff like this. One of the things that you can ask the crews is on your next flight, and I've asked this to pilots along the way, on your next, when you go out and fly the next few trips over the next month or something, what's the greatest risk that could come on the scene that you didn't think about?
Hmm.
And I just let them think about it a little bit and get them going, because that gets their processing going so that they have sort of thought a little bit about it even before they need to. And so
Hmm.
that all that aspect of it, and what you just said there is true, and that's also true of leaders when you're leading your team in a challenging environment, and or if you're trying to grow your company to reach radical results and success and get amazing profits coming in because of what you're doing now, not just because you raised the price,
Hmm.
but because people want to purchase it, and maybe the number of people that are buying your stuff just got doubled or tripled, kind of thing. Who knows? And
Hmm.
so all of those can happen in here when you're talking about this. But when you're, but a big part of that is in those quotes. And the quote that you said you really liked, the quote with,
Sir
uh,
Isaac Newton.
yeah, Isaac Newton and stuff. The bottom line is that's a great quote, because you know what? The ocean out there, you don't have vision of yet. Are you leading your team in a way where people start to gain a little bit of a picture of those possibilities of what can come out going forward? If you're doing that, guess what? You're developing your team for what could be radical results in a challenging situation that comes that nobody would have expected.
And
And
what's
so
interesting
that's just
too,
huge.
with the ocean concept of what you don't know,
Hmm.
we may have little pieces of knowing, but we don't have the full picture. For example,
There
you
you
know,
go.
the ocean, it's deep in a spot. It might not be deep there. There might be a canyon over here. There's fish in the ocean. We know certain things, but
There's fish, there's sharks, there's,
we don't know where they are.
yeah,
So
that's
it
right.
is a whole vast, to the point is, a little bit, but you don't know a lot is really what it
That's
comes
right.
down to.
And that's what I love about that quote.
You do know a lot about helping people move their companies and their teams forward. And it's easy to start the conversation. Coachingforrelevance.com. Know you well. No sales pitch, no pressure, nothing like
That's
that.
right.
Have a conversation, talk a little bit, see if it's a right fit, and see maybe into the ocean a little bit in terms of moving your life and your company together and moving it forward.
And that's, as a leader, that's one of our big things, to gain some insights on some of that's in the ocean out there that we didn't see before. Not that you're going to have to do something right now, but guess what? That you become aware of the possibility of it,
Yeah.
and all that, and all of that is huge. So like you, I love that quote from him, and it's very in line with what I was going to talk about.
I promise I'll be sharing that and lots more from what we talked about. And by the way, when you're in business, that ocean out there, a lot of times there's storms that roll through. So you want to be
Yes,
prepared for
there
that
are.
too.
Yes, there
just,
are.
just saying. Randy, always great having you on here. Really appreciate it. And truly looking forward next time we get together.
Well, I will too, and I appreciate you, Steve, and I hope you have a wonderful week for the rest of it, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
You too. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.